I describe myself as the secret daughter of Todd Rundgren and Laura Nero, meaning that I take a lot of influence from the kind of chord progressions that they both use as composers. Also in Todd Rundgren's case, he's known for a lot of zany humor in his songs, and I definitely am on that path as well. Another big influence of mine is Donald Fagen of Steely Dan, and Stevie Wonder from his classic era in the 70s, amazing chord progressions. Wayne Shorter, Herbie Hancock, and classic jazz artists like that. I'm coming a lot from that place. And French Impressionist composers, Maurice Ravel, Claude Debussy. And so what I do is I take those kinds of chord progressions and I pair them with zany lyrics that are kind of cheeky. And my lyric writing style, I owe a lot to the wordplay of the Great American Songbook lyricists like Cole Porter and Lorenz Hart and Yip Harburg, Ira Gershwin. Because to me, writing lyrics is not poetry, it's wordplay. They're two distinctly different things. Poetry, you can be more abstract, and it can be kind of a lot of imagery and kind of flowery language. Wordplay, on the other hand, you can sometimes bend the language to make rhymes, and for me it's like playing with silly putty. I really love the wordplay, and I really learned how to be a lyricist when it dawned on me that there are some lyricists who are poets. I'm not one of them. I'm a wordplayist. I have a degree in composition from the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor, and a degree in music theory from the University of Chicago in the President's own neighborhood of Hyde Park on the south side of Chicago. So I'm a freak and a nerd, because they always say the composition majors, composers are the freaks, the music theorists are the nerds. So I'm proud to be both. Always register your copyrights. The minute you create something in fixed, tangible form, it is technically copyrighted. Fixed, tangible form means whether you've written it on paper, or whether you've recorded, or anything that you can show to somebody, anything that can be shown in a court of law, technically is copyrighted. But it's better to officially register it with the Library of Congress. Now, there is a way to do it economically, because the Library of Congress charges, I think it's about $40 per copyright registration, and most of us musicians, we don't have that kind of money to do that for a whole album's worth of songs. But the loophole is you can put together your whole album of songs and designate it as a folio and register the copyright for the folio. And that way you only pay the $40 once, and your copyrights to each of those songs are registered with the Library of Congress. And so that's the great thing is it's a fairly easy thing to do. You can do it online now. They have a full online application, so it doesn't even require any physical paperwork, so it saves more trees if you do it online, and it's nice and straightforward, and the instructions are pretty clear. So just always do that. Once you've come up with enough songs to make your folio, if you don't plan on doing it one song at a time, which of course, as I said, it's much more economical to do it as a folio, always register your copyright. And then join a performing rights organization, whether it's ASCAP, BMI, or CSAC. Those are the three major ones in the US. CSAC is a bit more for the niche market of country music, and I guess a little bit into like Americana or some folk type stuff. But anything that borders on country or Appalachian, you're generally going to find artists registered with CSAC. ASCAP and BMI are more of the all genre. I mean, chances are if you talk to anybody who's a music artist, they're going to be registered either with ASCAP or BMI. And what these performing rights organizations do is, when you become a member of one, you register your songs with the performing rights organization, and the performing rights organization is in charge of getting your royalties to you. So if your song gets played on internet radio, and it's up to you to chase down the royalties, it's up to you to sort of follow through on the process, but when you're registered with a performing rights organization, you are going to get paid for your song being used. And certainly when it comes to licensing, which is where the real money in the music industry is these days. Licensing is when you submit your song to a music supervisor, who is, the music supervisor is the person who chooses what music is going to be in a movie or a television show or an advertisement. And so the music supervisor, if they choose, if they listen to your stuff and they think that your song might be right for something of theirs, they're gonna use it. You have to, fill out contracts. There's paperwork there, and of course every contract is different, so you just have to read it all the way through with fine print and all that. And then when the song gets used, the royalties come to you through your performing rights organization. Also, the reason, this is just a little good thing to know, the reason that a band can play cover songs is that music venues, public venues, and really any venue, restaurants, anything where you hear music piped in, like radio or satellite radio or Muzak piped in to a venue, they are registered with the performing rights organizations, with all of them, as they can register with all of the performing rights organizations. As an artist, you can't. You can only register with one. But a venue basically pays its dues to have the rights to any song that's registered with any of these performing rights organizations to be able to be played in the venue. So that's why, unlike if you record a cover of a song and you have to pay the licensing fee to the original artist in order to use the song, if you're playing in a bar one night and someone yells out a request, somebody yells out "Free Bird" and you actually want to honor their request, not that there'd be any reason to, since it's cliche and people think they're so clever for doing that, but anyway. Let's say, hypothetically, that you wanted to honor their request and play "Free Bird," which would, of course, take up the rest of the entire evening, because that song is so long. But anyway, you would legally be okay playing "Free Bird," because you're in a venue that's registered with all the performing rights organizations. I'm not sure off the top of my head whether Lynyrd Skynyrd is registered with ASCAP or BMI, but they're registered with one of them. And so you playing a song of theirs is not going to get you in trouble. Whereas if you were in the studio with your band and you're saying, hey, let's do a cover of such and such, let's do a cover. It's really difficult for people to do like Beatles covers, because getting the licensing fees for those, it's like chasing down a unicorn. So, but there are certain bands that are known to be easier to use. Like if you cover The Who, cover anything by The Who, it's pretty easy to get the right paperwork. You're obviously going to have to pay the licensing fee, but it's not going to be impossible. But let's say you're in the studio with your band and you say, yeah, I want to do a cover version of Eminence Front in 7/4 time with vibraphone. And I mean, this is my fantasy. I do want to do a cover of Eminence Front in 7/4 time with vibraphone. Really, I do. I think it'd be awesome. But anyway, let's say you want to do that. You can't just sit down and do it and then release your single. You're going to get in trouble for that. You have to fill out your paperwork, pay the licensing fee, and then if your cover gets played, you get performance royalties. But Pete Townsend and Roger Daltrey are going to get the royalties from having written it. So there are all different kinds of royalties, and that's a whole seminar's worth. But I don't think I have time to get into all that. So I'm the band leader and composer and lyricist for the Summarily Dismissed, which is a project that I put together initially in 2010. And we are a jazz soul performance group, band essentially. Our core membership is 2 female vocalists, 1 keyboard player / humorous vocalist, which would be me, 2 guitarists, a bassist, and a drummer. On our album, we had a horn section as well, and even an improvising viola on one of the songs, because in the studio, you only have to pay musicians once for coming in and doing the session. Whereas if you're playing gigs out and around, you got to pay them each time. Touring with a horn section, playing gigs with a horn section is just like impossible unless you have a huge budget, and I don't. So that's our band. I love performing with the band. I love recording with the band. It's just the greatest joy in my life, getting to have my compositions realized by some of the most talented musicians in New York. I love being in New York. The fact that I've been able to find so many talented people to work with, that is the great thing about living here. And our album is called To Each, and it's available on iTunes and on Amazon MP3, Rhapsody, all the major digital download sites it's on, as well as physical copies. If you look at what I'm holding here in my hand, if you go to our website and shoot an email to ari@summarily-dismissed.com, you can find out how to get a physical copy of one. The great thing about the physical copies is they have liner notes. Online you don't get your liner notes. I'm a liner notes geek. When I was a kid growing up, I looked into the liner notes of every CD I had. CDs, remember those? Oh God, the dying days of the CD store were my adolescent years. It was a dark, dark time when finally, during my college years, the CD died off and everything became digital, MP3s, no liner notes. But the good thing is, at least you can't spill spaghetti sauce on MP3s. So, make the best of things. Finding gigs is something that I have done largely through electronic press kits. I started out having an electronic press kit on sonicbids.com, which was a good site to use about 7 or 8 years ago. It has kind of fallen out in favor of Reverb Nation, which is what I now use, but there are lots of opportunities that you can submit to, and when you submit your electronic press kit, again, what's so great about it is you don't have to physically submit anything. You don't have to worry about postage and filling out the right forms, and whether I should have a copy of the CD unwrapped from its bubble wrap, or whether it should just be like an open copy, because are they going to bother to tear the shrink wrap off it? And you don't have to worry about that with electronic press kits. You just submit. And usually these days venues will say on their websites, they'll say, please do not send a physical copy of your CD. Please email such and such your electronic press kit. So that's generally how it's done. Also, a lot of times bookers kind of scout around and look on Reverb Nation to find people's electronic press kits, to find people to book. And I've gotten a lot of gigs for the band that way too, that there's some companies here in New York that are always looking for artists, and when they find you, they'll schedule you in lots of gigs. One of my big goals right now is to get the band on Live from Daryl's House, which is a monthly webcast that now also gets shown on the television station Palladia, but it started out as just a webcast that Daryl Hall of Hall & Oates hosts at his house up in the Hudson Valley. And the whole concept is that musicians, each month there'll be a different musical guest, and it's ranged all over different genres. They've had hip-hop artists, they've had country artists, they've had for one Christmas episode they had the gospel group the Blind Boys of Alabama. I mean, they ranging all over the place. And so for that episode, it will be Daryl Hall and a bunch of the members of the touring Hall & Oates band, who are just amazing musicians. And it'll be them doing the songs of the visiting artist as well as some of Daryl's songs. And it's music geek heaven. I mean, I watch these episodes and I'm just like, oh my God, if that could be me, if that could be us, if I could get onto that show with the band, that would just be one of those dreams come true, that when it happens to you, you're like, is this really happening? Pinch me. Is this a dream or is it real? I can't believe I've lived to see this day. So that's what it would be like, and that's one of my long-range, really gotta get there goals. Our website, summarily-dismissed.com. We're also on Facebook at facebook.com/summarily-dismissed. and on Twitter at the S Dismissed, and on Google Plus, if you just look up the Summarily Dismissed, because Google Plus addresses are always kind of long and convoluted, but if you look up the Summarily Dismissed, we're on Google Plus as well, and on YouTube, youtube.com/Summarily Dismissed, which connects to our Google Plus profile, so you connect to one, you connect to both. So we hope to see you online.